All right, you guys, welcome to another episode of Behind the Visual with Mark Hansen. I am your host, advertising and lifestyle photographer Mark Hansen. This is the podcast where I interview all the people responsible for creating those visuals you see out in your world every day, whether it's a print or a video. These are the people who have something to do with it, whether they're in front of the camera or behind it, creating the whole thing. So check it out. I think you're going to like this one. I'm talking to Nicole Ellingson. She is a creative director at Quigley-Simpson agency in California. And we talk about all kinds of stuff. Nicole's a great person. She's very, very happy, very easy to talk to. We talk about everything from travel, which she has done a ton of. We talk about her trip that she took at the end of 2019 to Bali, which I'm pretty sure I called Bali for some reason during the podcast, but let's try and ignore that and move on past that. But she talks about that trip, which made me want to go there. She talks about a trip to Scotland, which was actually for work on a shoot she was directing for the Chase Marriott card, rewards card, and they shot in Mexico, Tahoe, and Scotland, and she actually directed all that. So that's a pretty cool deal. She's creative director and director. We talk about the differences between being an art director, a creative director, and we talk about the most interesting or strangest thing that's occurred to her in this career in advertising, and it has to do with other women. So check that out. And I think you're going to enjoy this one. So let me know what you guys think. Like it, subscribe to it, thumbs up it, comment on it, all that kind of stuff, and enjoy. So, what have you been up to?
Well, it's been quite a year to say the least. I think that I've been really fortunate that I can work from home. Obviously that's a really big blessing in itself, that we've been able to transition to working from home. But this year, despite COVID, our agency and our creative work has actually really taken off, I think. So it's kind of interesting to think about, when you're confined in a space and, surrounded by challenges, how that can actually stimulate more creativity and problem solving, I think. So it actually has pushed us to be a bit better. And, usually throughout the year, we have a lot of shoots that we're traveling and traveling for work, and obviously that didn't happen. So I think staying put has been interesting in in a new way. I think it's forced us to find new ways to connect to people, which has been really cool.
How's that been for you? Were you traveling a lot before all this happened?
Yeah, I was fortunate that right before the lockdown started taking effect in March, I had taken a trip for the month of January to Bali. And so I just snuck in, right as this was starting to hit. We were also very fortunate because we had flown through Taipei on our way back to LA, but we didn't get sick. But who knows, now we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we flew, in January. But we were fortunate to sneak in that trip before everything shut down. But yeah, usually
Was that
I'm
for
traveling.
work or was that vacation?
That was for vacation.
Nice.
But usually for work, we do a couple travel shoots a year. And then, traveling, we have a couple events that we provide coverage for. And I mean, we're on the go quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
it's got to be different. Okay, I want to know a little bit about Bali. How was that?
So Bali was great. I mean, I'd never really traveled that far before. We traveled to Myanmar for a month prior, but we took this boat trip with some friends around this area called Raja Ampat and off the coast of West Papua. And we were just so remote. And, I'd never really traveled where I just was like, oh my gosh, I'm really like in the middle of nowhere. So you took this like boat trip around all these really cool islands that look like little green gumdrops in the water. And that was pretty cool. That's where we spent New Year's from the transition between 2019 and 2020. So
how long were you there?
We arrived we left on Christmas. We got into Singapore the day after Christmas. And then from there, we did a little bit of jumping around. We did this boat trip for a week, and then we went actually to Malaysia, and we were in Borneo, and we did this rainforest trekking to go see the orangutans in Borneo.
Oh, wow.
And then from there, we went to Bali and finished our trip in Bali for January. So
how long was that
solid trip? Oh man. I mean, it was definitely, I'm trying to think of, I think it was 17 hours from when we left. So we flew out of San Francisco. So it was a 17-hour trip from San Francisco to Singapore.
Oh my God.
So yeah, you got to settle in.
Yeah. I went to Budapest in 2019 and it was, I don't know, there, maybe it was like 9 hours there and like 10 and a half back or something like that. But that was long enough for me. I'm like 17 hours. That's a long time.
Yeah, definitely have to settle in. Luckily, we flew out at night. So, you can kind of pretend that it's nighttime. They turn down the lights and you can have this fake nighttime sleep. But yeah, it's a long haul.
We did that when my wife and I first got married, we went to Paris and we were taking a flight and we were going to arrive at like 7 a.m. or something in the morning Paris time. So she took some melatonin as soon as we got on the plane and it knocked her out immediately. The plane was delayed on the tarmac for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. She woke up right as we were taking off and she could not go back to sleep again. So she was awake the entire flight over there. And when we got there, all she wanted to do was go to sleep.
Oh man.
Didn't work out real well.
It's definitely, traveling. I feel like I was definitely hitting my stride with traveling because like I said, we work with a lot of travel brands. And so, between work travel for shoots or, traveling for vacation, I have my methods down pretty well.
Yeah,
so, I used to have like quite a few drinks at the airport, and now I've cut back on that because it actually keeps you up. You'll fall asleep initially, but then once you similar to your wife, you want to wake up and you can't go back to sleep. So, and then you get so dehydrated and so I've definitely cut back on that with my travels.
Where's the coolest place you've been?
I actually, that trip that we took was pretty awesome. I think, just the combination of the boat trip around Raja Ampat and to the jungles of Borneo to Bali was
that's a lot.
Trifecta of experiences. Cool. So that was pretty cool. And then a few years prior, we took a month to go to Myanmar, and we wanted to go there because it's just been opening back up to tourism after being under this military regime. And, which there's still obviously a lot of issues in that country. It's interesting, the path that you can take as a tourist there, you're very sheltered. So, where there's conflict, it's in these different regions that you're not allowed to go. So it was interesting to see one area where we were at a harbor where we were going to get on for another boat trip. We noticed that there was actually a stronger Muslim presence there, but it seemed fine, so it was interesting to see those communities, but we wanted to experience a place that hadn't been completely overrun by tourism yet. So it was that aspect was really, really neat. And the people there are incredible and, just really, curious about you, and will just kind of, obviously you stand out when you show up. So my boyfriend's kind of a long-haired, bearded hippie, so he definitely sticks out. But yeah, and so, but it was what I found fascinating. We were there right during Trump's inauguration, and what was amazing is how many people were coming up to us and asking us what we thought about that.
Really?
And how many people spoke English and would come up and talk to us about the election. And you're just like, you're in Myanmar, and this is their news as well. So it's like how much American politics really spread around the world.
Yeah, I was amazed. I was in England when I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Bush or Clinton or somebody I don't remember which one it was being elected. And the people we were staying with knew more about the electoral college than I did. They're like, so North Carolina has this many votes, New York has this many votes, California has this
Right.
many. And I was just going, I had no clue how many votes any of them had. Yeah, and they knew the whole thing. They knew all about it. They were very
Yeah.
interested. It was a trip.
Yeah, I think, what's interesting about travel is that, I think, I have family that hasn't traveled outside of the US, and it's interesting because I think people think that there's this big divide, that it's this whole other world is totally different people. But then when you actually go to these places, you realize how people are people wherever you
Yeah.
go. And that, it's actually not that different. And that, like you mentioned, some people know more about what's going on in America than we do.
Yeah, it's amazing. We were in you're talking about you guys, everybody being interested in you. My wife and I, was the same, that Paris trip. We were going, I'm blanking on the name of it. There's a huge mall in Paris, but I cannot remember the name of it right now. Anyway, we had gone there just to check it out. And we're standing outside. And at the time, I had my hair was like halfway down my back, it was down to here. My wife's tall, blonde. And we're standing outside this place, and all of a sudden, like 5 or 6 teenagers come running up to us, and they all want our autograph. They don't know who we are. They just think we're somebody famous, I guess. And they were
Right.
just all asking for our autograph. And I was just like, I don't even know who you people think I am right now, or she is. But it was funny. I was like, all right. So I just signed whatever they gave us and went on with my life. But yeah, it was kind of cool.
That happens quite a bit traveling through Southeast Asia as a blonde couple.
Oh, I bet.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
guessing you guys are
Yeah.
taller than most people too over there.
Yeah. We had a lot of photo ops with people as well. As funny. It's like, I don't know who you think we are, but we'll be famous today.
Yeah, exactly. How'd you get into advertising? Like, was this something that you had planned on at some point, or did it just happen?
So, it was interesting. I moved to LA to go to USC and study film. And I had this dream of being a director, but I also always had this passion for art. So I was always in art classes in school, and, was always an artist. I also liked photography. And when I was in school, I started taking some really great communications classes that I really loved, because advertising is a way to tell stories, but you also have to solve problems for marketing, right? So
Yeah.
it's not just creativity for creative sake. You actually have to, use your other side of your brain to solve strategic problems and think strategically. So while I was in school, I was going through some internships. I interned at New Line Cinema, and I was an assistant in the creative development department. And I saw my path within film being a very arduous one, to say the least.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, it's going to be a while before I can even get anywhere. And for me, I wanted to be making stuff right away. So I kind of switched gears. I tried out this entertainment marketing company internship, and I got into doing design. I designed a lot of key art for films, and I loved
Wow.
it, and so that kind of gave me this taste into design and marketing and advertising, and I just loved it because I was making stuff every day. And then at the end of my work, I could see, billboards with my work around Los Angeles, and that was pretty cool.
Oh,
So,
yeah. That's very cool.
so I was hooked. And, after that, I got a full-time job working at an entertainment advertising agency. And, I was really lucky in my career, because I had creative directors all along the way that really brought me in and welcomed me. And I actually worked for a lot of great women.
Oh, that's good.
Which was rare back in the day. It's becoming less so now, but you know, I was really fortunate that they really brought me into this space and championed my creativity. And from there, it was history. So now, what's funny is that now working in advertising, we're making more video content. And so like the last campaign that we shot, I guess that would have been 2019. Was it it would have been 2019 now. It feels so long ago.
Yeah, I can't get
shape shifted.
Right.
But I actually directed that shoot and that video content. So
what was that for?
It's come full circle. So one of our clients is the Chase Marriott co-branded credit cards.
Yeah.
And so we kind of play multiple roles with them, where we work primarily with Marriott as a travel brand, and then we work with their rewards programs. And so for that campaign, we worked with influencers, but not just your typical I look good on Instagram influencer, but people that actually have passions and a story to tell.
So it's not just, hey, here's my butt.
Exactly.
That's probably good.
Exactly. So we work with people that have unique perspectives and a unique story to tell, and so we would shoot travel stories around their passion points. So for example, we worked with a foodie who was had celiacs, and so her approach to travel with having this restrictive diet, and so we took her to Mexico City. And Mexico City is actually a great place to go if you are gluten intolerant. So there's a lot of tacos with corn tortillas, good to go. So she was in heaven, and we had a great time shooting with her. We worked with a snowboarder in Tahoe, and then we also worked with like a photographer and content creator in Scotland. So
did you get to go to Scotland?
Yes, it was awesome.
Oh yeah. Wow. So how long did that shoot take? Like total?
So, we're let's see, our Scotland shoot, we shot, I think, for 4 days there.
Okay.
And then we had like we had some scouting days around that, but actual shooting days was only 4 days shooting.
So how long is the whole between Mexico, Tahoe, and Scotland?
So they're broken up. So we shot them at different points in the year.
Okay.
And the Tahoe shot, since I'm in LA, was an easy one to drive up to. And then Mexico City, we shot first, and each shoot was only about 2 to 3 days of actual shooting.
Did you get to hang out and vacation at all a little bit?
Yeah, the Mexico City trip, the way that it was scheduled, I actually just added a little time at the beginning and end so I could stay. I actually checked out the pyramids there, which I can never pronounce correctly, but there's these really great pyramids outside, Aztec pyramids outside of Mexico City, that I went and toured. And I had a great time exploring the city. I went to a luchador match, which was pretty cool.
Oh wow.
I was by myself, and so I actually wound up getting a seat in the front row because I had one seat available, and I was like drinking like a giant beer, and the luchadors are it's wrestling, and they're flying all around the ring, and next thing you know, they're coming at me, and he grabs my beer, takes it, and like smashes it on his competitor's face. So I was like, and they're so great, like there's like a little person that came down and was like, we're gonna get you another beer, don't worry about it. But he like took my beer, like this big cup of beer, just smashed it on the other guy's face. It was amazing. I had such a great time.
Oh my God. Yeah, I thought you were saying he's gonna take it and just chugged it all and threw it back at you. But that's even worse, just smashing on somebody's face.
Just smashing it.
Damn. How is Scotland? I've heard it's really pretty.
Oh my gosh, it wasn't a place that I had initially thought thought about, because I'd been to London, and, I've been trying to, travel, I don't know, to more,
sounds like exotic places with that.
Yeah, exotic places, I guess. Yeah, since I've been to London before, I kind of checked the box. But
that's kind of why I am. Like Scotland, I've heard everybody says it's pretty, but I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, but it was amazing. I mean, actually, it surprised me at how incredible it is. I mean, it's beautiful just in itself, but the place that you can stay there, you can stay in castles. I mean, you can just legit stay in castles while you're traveling. And, they have, of course, Scotch distilleries if you are into that type of thing, which I am. So my boyfriend actually met up with me there, and we extended our trip after my shoot. And we drove all through the Scottish countryside, and we popped into Scotland Games, which or Highland Games.
Yeah.
Highland Games. So that's where the guys are in their kilts. They're doing these really crazy activities of like pitchforking bales of hay and throwing them over a bar, and it's pretty awesome.
Yes. That sounds
but
cool.
Yeah, it's treacherous driving. You have to be a good driver there, because some roads are just one lane and they're very small, and you're also driving on the opposite side. And
yeah, so
but
it's very similar to England.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. We made it all the way out to the Isle of Harris, where they make Harris tweed. And
really?
There we stayed in Lady Scott's hunting lodge, which is a castle on the island. And then from there, we came back through the Isle of Skye, and it's just a gorgeous place.
All right. Now you're making me add it to the list of places I want to go. It sounds amazing.
I would go back. I mean, it's that amazing. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to put that on my list then for sure. Hey, you're talking about billboards. Do you remember your first billboard? Do you remember seeing your first billboard?
I'm trying to think of what the very first one was. Funny enough, it actually, I believe, was a California avocado campaign.
Okay.
And then I switched gears to, like I mentioned, an entertainment marketing agency, and one of our clients at that agency was Sony Entertainment. And so we did a lot of key art for their campaigns for shows and movies, and their studios are all along Washington Boulevard in Culver City in LA, and they have these big studio buildings. So when you get a key art up on that building, driving by it is just awesome, because it's just larger than life. So one of my favorite designs was for the Pan Am TV show, which only had one season, unfortunately, but I created the key art for it and did some marketing as well. And seeing that really large was really awesome.
I've never watched the show, so I can't say anything about it, but it looked like it was going to be cool. And then it was gone before I remembered that was on TV.
I think the budgets were really high, so they couldn't sustain it. Yeah. Something like that. I don't know.
I could imagine, because when I saw that it was coming out, my first thought was, wow, I bet they could do a lot with that. Because the stories I've heard about, back then when Pan Am was huge, because my aunt used to work for Pan Am back then. And I can imagine it would have made for great TV if they could afford to keep it on the air.
Probably I'm sure. Cool. I know. Well,
go ahead.
Speaking of, thinking about travel and talking about long plane rides, it's funny to think about, how a plane ride used to be versus now. It's this whole like concierge experience versus now they're like cramming you in there. Like you're lucky if you get a snack.
Yeah, here's your water.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, so when I was little, we flew and they had a smoking section on the plane. Wow. Which was the dumbest thing ever, because you literally could be in the non-smoking section, which was the seat right behind the smoking section.
Right.
So It didn't make any sense. But then you got a breakfast on a whole tray with all kinds of stuff. You got a lunch or a dinner with, just a tray full of things. It was never any good. I mean, the food, especially if you were sitting back in coach anyway, it was never any good. But compared to now, you get you hear your bag of peanuts and a cookie and your drink. And if you want anything more, it's going to cost you $5-10. It's a totally different experience than it used to be.
I know it's really interesting. And now, I mean, I was fortunate that because I traveled so much, I would have status on United. And so I could get bumped up usually. And I was like, always crossing my fingers for that, especially for those longer flights. You're just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I have a friend of mine who travels, well, he did until COVID. He traveled usually 3 to 4 days a week. So he would leave his house on Sunday night or Monday morning and wouldn't come back till Thursday night or Friday morning. And so we all went on a trip together. It was like a guy's trip. And he ended up, because of his status, he ended up getting us all to get on the plane. When he got on the plane, we could go do, pretty much a lot of things he did because he had that kind of status. And it was nice. Yeah. And he got to go into like the lounge and all that kind of stuff. And supposedly one time he was late for a flight and they actually put him on a cart and wheeled him out to the plane and slapped him up on it. Although he said it sucks. He said, I would never, he said it to get that much status, he said your life sucks because you're on a plane all the time.
Yeah.
You're flying nonstop.
Definitely.
But it's, when you do fly, it's nice. Do you have the whole international TSA pre-check, kind of whatever they call it when it's international?
Yeah, that also helps quite a bit.
I did not learn that you could do the internet. I thought it was all included. And then after I get my pre-check, I see something that goes, oh, you can get it for international. It's for what, $50 more or something. I can't remember what it was. It was basically nothing. But once you've already signed up for it, you can't just add it on. You have to go back and do the whole thing again and then pay the entire fee with the extra fee for that again if you wanted to get it. So right now I just have the pre-check and not the international. So because I don't travel enough internationally to make it worth it at the moment anyway.
Yeah, well, definitely not now, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's for sure.
I had another trip planned. I was going to go to Patagonia in December, and it's like we're waited till the very last minute to actually cancel anything, but they weren't even letting people into the country of Chile, at all. So like, oh, we should probably cancel this now. But yeah, it'll be interesting. It's been interesting to think about how people are going to feel comfortable traveling again. Certainly I think that with America's approach to the pandemic, I don't think many countries are going to want Americans traveling to their country anytime soon. So it'll be interesting to see how that changes.
I saw something, there's that saying, well, they're going to avoid it like the plague. And I saw some kind of thing that said, well, in America, that doesn't mean anything. It's basically just like you're just going with your life. So obviously, avoid it like the plague doesn't really mean much.
Doesn't have any meaning anymore.
Yeah, it's like just go on and do what you're going to do. So when you became creative director, you were art director before, right?
Right.
What's the big difference between art director and creative director?
So I would say that as a creative director, I'm leading more of the strategic approach versus just focusing on how something looks, right? So I'm making sure that not only the art direction, but the copy and the whole concept is in line with the brand, with the assignment, with our goals for the campaign. I think it's looking at creative through a much more strategic lens and helping junior teams learn that strategic thinking as well. So we're never creating in a vacuum, and we have to hit these key points or this key messaging or reach this specific audience. So we have to keep all of these things in mind, and sometimes work doesn't check all those boxes. And so, I become the gatekeeper to make sure that the work is working as hard as it can. And of course, what I love is being a leader to younger teams and champion new creativity. So that's actually the fun part of my job is seeing people come up and, teaching me things sometimes too, but, being a mentor to other people and, helping them create some really incredible work. So it's less on me to make the work, although I still make quite a bit of work at my agency, but it's really helping others come into their own creatively.
That's cool. So you get to still do a little bit of the art direction part, but you're mostly the creative director.
Right, exactly.
That's probably good. You get the best of both worlds kind of a deal.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, I think I like to use kind of all of my brain. So it's a way to, think about the business and think strategically while also thinking artistically and creatively.
I was talking to a photographer friend of mine the other day. He called me because he had some promos he made 3 years ago, and he was like, "I think I should send them out." And well, I guess you might as well. You've had them for a while, although I mean, his work's pretty consistent, so I'm assuming that they'll work fine. And he was like, "I don't know if I should send them to art directors or creative directors," and I never thought about it. Like, who would make more of the decision on who you're going to present to your client? Would it be you, the creative director, or is it an art director, or is it a combo of all of you guys?
I think creative directors are a good place to start because they're probably overseeing more business. And so they could recommend you to more people and places. So they would have a pool of resources that they would then recommend to their teams.
Okay.
So, I think they're also higher up on the totem pole. So they can make more decisions about who to work with. So I think starting with creative directors, but it doesn't hurt to have good partnerships with art directors too. I think the more you can get your work out there, the better. I recently was a judge or not a judge, a reviewer for the Photo LA portfolio reviews.
Oh, that's cool.
And, I think just getting your work out there and seen by more people, it was interesting. I met with somebody who had a niche for shooting in hospitals and with doctors in a really beautiful way. And I just so happened that we won a new healthcare business, so you just never know.
Yeah.
You never know where those connections might be.
Was that your first time doing that?
Yeah, and it was really fun. And it was what was really cool. And actually what I loved seeing with your site and your work too is, what people are up to during COVID. I think it's been really hard on people who work in production or work, as a photographer who might be used to being out there with these large groups shooting a project, and I think how people have adapted has been really incredible to see, just and how they work or what they're choosing to shoot. And, there were some really cool projects I saw just, being a reviewer on that panel, of what people are up to. I mean, one guy, his specialty was always kind of building these cool sets and shooting them in ways that, inanimate objects kind of come to life. And so what he was doing in COVID was really cool as well. So I think kind of like I mentioned at the beginning, like, I think it's been hard, but it's really forced creative people to think in new ways and rise to the challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely been interesting. I've never sat so much in my life in front of a computer as I had during COVID. Yeah. So it was nice. I got to the point where I did all the things, kind of caught up on all the stuff, and I gotta go do something. I've got to get out and go shoot something. I really didn't care what it was. I just wanted to. So I started off bugging the hell out of my family. I was just shooting them at first, and to the point where my daughter was walking from the kitchen to go upstairs to her bedroom, and I had the camera, and she was just like, mm-mm. She just put her hand up. She's like, just leave me alone. I've had enough of it. I can't take it anymore. So then I had to go out of the house and start looking for other things to shoot. But with the portfolio review thing, sounds like there are a lot of really good photographers that you saw. Were there any that you were just like, and then how do you handle that if there were any?
That's a good question. I think it was a mix of people that I reviewed. There were some who were veterans that had these, great portfolios that had new work that they wanted reviewed and feedback on because they're trying something new. But there are other people that were in the review who were just starting out. And, I think in that respect, I would lean into what's working,
right,
and say, you're really, and really look at their work in a way that you can pull out the things that are working. So you can say, lean more into this
right.
versus, this looks like crap,
Yeah. Well,
So,
that's nice of you. My first, I
I
never
think
did a
that,
review like that. I never submitted my book, but when I first started shooting, I went to New York and I thought I was ready for a rep, an agent, and I wasn't, but I thought I was. And so I found one who would actually meet with me and look at my, and they told me up front they weren't looking to take on anybody new, but he would, look at my book. And this guy's flipping through my book, and we're still friends 20 years later. He's flipping through my book. He stops at this cover of this magazine and goes, "What the fuck is this?" And I went, "Is this in here because it's a cover?" I went, yeah. And he goes, "Take it out." He said, "The photography is good, but the model's bad. The clothes are bad. The, the copy's bad." He said, "You got to take it out."
yeah,
And he's the first person who did that to me. And I went, and from that point on, I was like, all right, anything new, I was sending it to him because I knew he wasn't going to go, "Oh, this is nice, just keep on."
yeah,
So that was kind of cool. But I'm not sure everybody can handle that. And I think that's like and he's very harsh and he still is
yeah.
to this day. But I think some people would have just been crushed by that.
Yeah, I think I like to lead with something positive, like this is what's working,
I
and
think that's
then
a
this is
better
what's,
way.
like this is what's working, and this is what's not working, right?
Yeah.
So I would, cut this out, like, but I probably wouldn't start there. I
Yeah.
would start with this is what you have that's working, and this is maybe what you can leave behind.
I think your way is
Um,
much better.
well, it's interesting when I, was going through school and my first job, we put work up on the wall, and
Yeah.
that's how you review things. And, I think that now we're a lot nicer than how things used to be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I remember putting work up on the wall when I was just starting out, and my creative director would come in, and if it was after lunch, he would have had like a few drinks. And so then
Yeah.
he'd really lay into you. So, afternoon reviews, it was like, why is this here? Why did you make this decision? This looks like shit,
Right.
and like, there were definitely a few times where I wanted to cry, but at the same time, it made me a better creative.
Yeah.
So, I think that I don't think that we should ignore criticism, but I think that delivery can matter for
Yeah. I
sure.
think delivery, yeah, can definitely. And I'd rather have, like you do, give me the positive and then like maybe stay away from this. But I'd rather have either one of those as opposed to, "Oh, this is really nice, thank you," and just send me on my way, when knowing that
Right.
maybe two shots were good and the rest were crap. So
Yeah.
I'd rather hear, "These are your two best shots. Lean into this, do this," as opposed to just, "Thank you, we love it. This is nice," and then send me on my
And
way.
then never hear from you again,
Yeah,
right? You're
yeah,
like, what did I do? So
yeah. You
yeah, I
said you
think
liked it. So
yeah, I don't find that helpful either.
no, not at all. In 15 years, how long you been? Like 15 years? Is that right? Something like that.
Yep.
What's the biggest change you've noticed from your end?
Oh man. Well, just I think just the technology has
Yeah.
changed so much. So what we're actually making and doing has changed. If you look at the fact that when I started, there wasn't even social media, really,
Yeah.
and now that's a huge part of what we make every day, I think is really interesting. Um, even down to the talent. I mentioned that we worked with influencers for our campaign. So these are people who are well known on social media, but they're not celebrities.
Right.
So I think that's a really interesting aspect as to the talent that we're using in advertising and that kind of reach.
Are you
I
shooting
think
more per day? Are you trying to get more done in a shoot as opposed to 10 years ago?
definitely. So now, before it'd be like, okay, this is a print shoot that
Right.
we're going to capture for print. Now it's like, we're shooting for social. Let's capture some boomerangs, let's capture video and print, it's like, let's capture everything all in one shoot. We worked on a weight loss brand where we pretty much captured as much as we could in the time we had. And, we had like a B unit crew that would come in and capture the behind the scenes. And now that content rules the world, capturing all that content has become the priority. And, I think as we look forward into shoots coming up, it's interesting seeing brands wanting to go back to a cleaner aesthetic. And so I think that it's going to have to be less chaotic again, and maybe and have a stronger point of view again, because there's so much saturated out there of just throwing it all together, that I think brands are going to be looking for ways to have a visual point of view again that doesn't feel so hectic.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, me too.
You guys expect, I've heard so much about photographers need to be able to shoot stills and videos or motion now. Do you guys book the same photographer to do those two different things, or do you have a crew that does the motion portion? Because I've talked to different people and some of it's different. Someone's like, no, we book a still photographer just for the stills. If we want motion, we book a crew just to do the motion. We don't overlap the two.
I think it depends on the shoot, but we've shot things where the DP has done both.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a more nimble kind of docu-style type of shoot. But then usually we would have a dedicated video crew, dedicated still crew.
Would you do that like as a separate, would you go and find a separate video crew on your own, or would you ask, say you have a photographer that you really want to use for that shoot, where you go, hey, we need video as well, can you provide that for us and we'll let you handle it? Or do you handle it all on your own?
So that's what we would usually do. We would usually look for like a still photographer whose style that we like. And then we would tap them to say, hey, do you work with a videographer or video crew that, you'd want to loop in? 'Cause we want to try to have someone with who's the point person in that respect, and so we usually look to photographers to be that person.
That makes sense. Would you have the photographer direct as well, or would you have a separate to keep that aesthetic all the same, or would you let it go with a different director?
So it depends again on the shoot. Sometimes and it depends on the purpose. Like if our purpose is mainly for stills, then the photographer is usually the director,
right?
With video as support. But then other shoots, it's the other way around, right? Yeah. So we would have a director that we're shooting, actual more robust video content, and then stills would be support. So it kind of
I've experienced that before, and stills are definitely support on those shoots. They're like, all right, I know we told you had 5 minutes, but now you have a minute and a half. So get in there and do your thing as fast as possible. All right.
Yeah.
But at least now I'm prepared for it. I know it's coming. Whenever I'm told I'm going to have 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes or whatever in between, I know that's always a lie. So I know how that goes now.
It's like you have 1 minute.
Yeah.
1 minute. I was shooting,
although it worked opposite. I did a shoot with Kamala Harris, and it was for video. It was for complex.com, and they would do a sneaker thing or something. So they were videoing her, and I was told I was going to have 60 seconds with her after the shoot. And I ended up having longer. I think it was mainly because of her, and she just let me have longer. But then they also let me in where they weren't going to let me in while they were filming, until I wasn't going to be allowed in until afterwards. And they finished filming, but they let me in. So I was able to shoot a little, when they were in between, I was able to pop off some shots too. So that was the first time I actually had more time than less time. So that was kind of cool. That was nice.
That's nice.
That. Yeah.
Definitely.
Do you remember your first big campaign?
Yes. So it was actually at that entertainment marketing agency. We won the Sony Entertainment branding campaign. So that was a campaign for all of Sony Entertainment that had to wrap all of their independent properties. So it was branding Sony Entertainment as a whole.
Oh, wow.
And so that touched everything. I mean, from their website to their, on-site banners and things around the studio lot, to their materials that they use to promote their TV shows and movies. And when I designed that campaign and it won, I was like beside myself. I was like, oh my gosh, I rebranded Sony Entertainment. So that was a really big design win. And then I think after that, when I went and worked at Chiat Day, I worked on the Pepsi Refresh campaign, and that really clicked for me of how we can tap big corporations to do social good and actually leverage social media for that purpose. So this was, like back in the day when, Facebook, everything was still really new, smartphones had just come out. And that got me more into the digital space and doing online stuff and social media. And it really made me realize that, because I selling soda doesn't always feel like that great sometimes, but when you think about all of those dollars that went into to support charities, they had people go on social media and vote for their charities, and they would then donate money to those charities. And this whole idea of like refresh was really great. And so I think that campaign really kept me into advertising, because I saw that it can actually affect change for good.
Yeah. It's nice to shoot for those clients that occasionally do something like that. And it's not just all about promoting whatever, the clothes or that one product just for more sales. So it's nice when you get something like that. Yeah, I completely get that. What was your favorite? So out of all these years, what's your favorite campaign you've ever shot or ever done, created?
I think the work that we've been doing with Marriott, with their Boundless Rewards card and program, has been just a ton of fun. We are fortunate because the clients are great to work with. So they've really trusted our creative control over the project, and just being able to travel to shoot and tell actual human stories around travel has been incredible, because again, it's advertising, but I'm selling something I believe in, which is, our task from the clients is, how do we promote the good of travel, and how does travel make us better people? And I can do that all day, every day.
Sounds like you do it all the time without that. So yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Do you ever look at where Marriott has their hotels and just go, I want to go there, so let's set up something in that location so that we have to travel to that spot and shoot?
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. They have like hotels pretty much, in every country in the world. So, it's interesting because they always want to actively promote their breadth and depth of properties. So, finding the cool place in some cool remote area, they're all for it. So, at one point we pitched, Sri Lanka. There's a property there.
Really?
So, we shot in Morocco, and
oh wow. How's that? Morocco is kind of sketchy, like as far as Morocco, just the whole place.
I had a blast. I had a blast in Marrakesh, and then we went to this area just outside of Marrakesh to shoot. And I think we were definitely in a production bubble. So I had people around me that took us where we needed to be, and but I thought it was incredible. It's just beautiful. Their design and architecture there is really nice. But even the times when I was exploring on my own, I didn't feel too unsafe. So
that's good, because I wanted to go there, and then somebody's like, "Oh, you don't want to go to Morocco right now." And that was a few years ago. So I don't know. Is there any place you want to go you haven't been yet? Is there a list of places you want to go?
I definitely have a running list. My boyfriend has traveled more than I have. He has been to, so he works in production. He works at art department for production for commercials.
Okay.
But he would always take a month off to travel. And then prior to moving to LA, he traveled from the Middle East through the southern tip of Africa hitchhiking for like 3 years. Yeah. So just on his own.
I want to talk to him.
Yeah. Dude,
I want to hear some of those stories.
He's got some stories, man. He has had quite the experiences. I mean, he was like a river raft guide in the Zambezi River for a while in Africa, and he almost died of malaria. You know,
oh my God.
But he had. I mean, he did it. I think he's from Indiana, and it was just kind of like this growing up moment of who he wants to be as a man, he likes to say. So he took that time, and then when he came back, he moved to LA and started his career in production.
Wow. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Nebraska.
Oh, so and about the same in the country.
Yeah.
Okay. So what made you so film is what made you go out to USC, right? You wanted to, so that's how you got out there. All right. When did you know that's what you wanted to do, or thought that's what you wanted to do?
I'd always loved movies and storytelling. I'd always liked writing in addition to making art. So it was just always this passion for telling stories. I used to always write, even when I was in elementary school, I would write these elaborate tales and like illustrate them, and I think the aspect of storytelling is really compelling, and that's what I've tried to bring to my career in advertising too.
Well, that's good. So I read something about you and mushrooms, like eating mushrooms. What's that about?
Like how so? So there.
I don't know. You talked about some kind of experiment with, I don't know. There was something about something where they interviewed you about working from home, and you said something about some kind of mushroom.
Yes. I would say, well, there's like a very big range of mushrooms that I've tried.
Yeah.
But
what's your best experience with mushrooms? Let's go with that.
Well, I'm a big proponent of all mushrooms, including the psychedelic ones. But the ones I was talking about in that article were actually the chaga mushroom, which has been pretty well researched in regard to cancer prevention.
Okay.
And so I'd watched this documentary where Paul Stamets was the featured expert on mushrooms. I love him. He's a great mycologist. And he was talking about how his mom had staved off breast cancer using this experimental supplement with chaga mushroom. And so I'm a breast cancer survivor as well. And that's when I got turned on by all of these properties of mushrooms that are supposed to help, disease. So I became a big mushroom fan in that respect after my diagnosis. And thankfully, I have now celebrated over 5 years of being cancer-free. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yes. And so it's from chaga mushrooms. Is that what they were?
Chaga. So
Chaga?
CHAGA.
Okay. All right. And no hallucinogenic effects from those?
No hallucinogenic effects from those.
Oh, wow.
but all the health benefits. And actually, I think right now during a pandemic, anything to boost your immune system is a good thing.
I saw they have like mushroom tea. I think I heard about it on some podcast. Somebody was Joe Rogan. I think it's somebody they were sponsoring him, some mushroom tea company. But I can't remember the name of it. My wife tried it and said it was pretty good. Or mushroom coffee. I don't remember what the hell it was.
Yeah, from Four Sigmatic. I love those
That's
guys.
what it is. It's Four Sigmatic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't tried it though. I don't really drink coffee, so I haven't tried the Four Sigmatic.
Me either. I'm not a big coffee person, but I love tea. So I like their they do a matcha latte with mushrooms in it. That's really good.
Oh, see, I didn't know they did tea. I did see that she's got some little sample pack of looks like maybe you can make hot chocolate out of it or something maybe. So I thought maybe I'd try that and see what that tastes like.
Yeah, the hot chocolate's not bad.
Yeah. All right. I'll try that. Any positives from this whole stay-at-home thing?
Like I said, I think it's really forced us to think differently. And, one of the cool things that we did with our clients with Marriott was we sponsored a Daybreaker party. I don't know if you're familiar with Daybreaker, but they before lockdown, they used to throw these morning raves. They're sober morning raves, right? They're like these big dance parties that created a really nice community of people who are morning people and wanted to go dance before work. And they really blew up and started
doing at their hotels.
Well, so no, this Daybreaker is like a separate event company. And then when the pandemic hit, they went virtual, and we noticed that they were doing brand sponsorships. And so we're like, what if we did a brand sponsorship where Marriott could sponsor like 3 free Saturdays of this, so people could join for free, and we would do travel themes. And so at the beginning of each event, we taught a dance class that was like a theme to what the destination was, and we would like encourage people to like dress up for the theme. And it was really incredible, and it's something that I don't think that we would normally have been able to do, and we were just tasked at the beginning of the year to find ways to bring joy to people. And I think what's really nice, and you mentioned what's positive that's come out of this, I think, is positivity. I think you're going to see, hopefully, I think brands are going to lean into kindness. I think we're all going to be a little gentler with one another, hopefully.
Yeah.
And, just that simple task of how can we bring joy to people is what I'd like to continue to lean into.
Yeah, it would be good. I'd like for that to continue. I saw a lot of, like some of the bigger companies like Budweiser, Coke, they're not doing their Super Bowl ads because they're going to take that money and push it over towards like healthcare workers and stuff like that or something. I didn't see the whole, I wasn't able to watch the whole thing, but I just saw that they weren't going to do the $5.5 million for their 30-second Super Bowl ad or whatever. So that was kind of cool to see that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And, I think pets have benefited a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My dog is loving it. Yeah. Yeah. My dog is loving every second of it. I think she's very happy that we are all home and she can bug the hell out of all of us at any point when she wants to. Yeah.
Yeah. We just adopted a rescue dog, and I had a cat. But then we were like, well, I think it's time, we're home now, so let's adopt a dog. And he's by my side now every day, which is great.
All right. So does the dog get along with the cats, or cats get along with the dog?
Yeah, the cat's she's fine.
Whatever.
She's actually not too fazed by him, and like he likes to act like he's tough to kind of strut around, but for the most part they get along.
Do you guys think you're going to go back in person to the office this year?
I don't know. I think
or ever.
Hard to make. I was say I think it's hard to make plans at this moment because everything's so touch and go. I think ultimately I would love to see people in person again, at least, if it's flexible where people can maybe work from home and then go in for days where we meet and kind of maybe plan for the week. We've done a great job creatively, but I miss the energy of brainstorming in person. There's just something to that doesn't quite translate remotely. Like when you get, a bunch of creative minds in a room, you can just whiteboard. And I think that there's something to that, but I think we're going to be working from home for a while.
Yeah. I told my, rep yesterday, we were talking, I was like, as soon as I'm allowed to travel again, I'm gone. I said, soon I'm going to set up meetings in New York and LA, wherever, just to get out and go see people and be around people again, as opposed to just, I like the Zoom thing. It's cool, but it's not the same as like actually being able to sit with somebody and say hi and talk to them. And so when I started this thing, I thought I was going to do this whole podcast with everybody in person. I thought I'd show up, we'd do it in person, but then it's probably worked out better because it's probably easier to get somebody to go on Zoom and do it as opposed to set it up in person, maybe. But I would just prefer to go in person as soon as I can. All right, I'm going to let you go. I got one last question for you.
Cool.
What's the strangest or most interesting thing that you experienced since you've started this whole journey in advertising?
Strangest. Let's see. I think this isn't really weird, but I think it's been unique to my path, which it's maybe a different take on this question, but that's that throughout my career, I've been welcomed in and led by women leaders, which is very unique to my experience. And, I think I've read a lot about, toxic workplaces and seen a lot of that going on. And what's really stood out to me when I've been thinking about my career lately is like, oh my gosh, every step of the way, it's been this awesome women leaders like, go Nicole, and so I think that's strange in advertising.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not the type of answer you're looking for because it's not really weird, but I think it's just something I've been thinking a lot about.
But it's a good thing. And I think I've always said that if women could do that in life in general with each other, that they would rule the entire world, because men can be led so easily by women.
Yeah.
That I think women could totally rule this entire world if they could support each other, as opposed to, like, I've always said with my daughters, like when she goes out with her friends, it's like, don't listen to what your friends say about an outfit what you walk out in on, because I've actually experienced it when I was younger and dating, where a girl would come out and she'd go, what do you think? And her friends go, oh, that looks great. And as soon as she turned around, like, oh my God, her ass looks so big in that. I can't.
Right. Totally.
Yeah, it's like they could easily rule the world if you guys would just all support each other.
I agree.
And it'd probably be a better world anyway. Probably be less fighting.
Exactly. And I think it's like I said, I've noticed a lot of conversations around like workplace, people having a lot of trouble with people they work with. And I think what's strange is that I've been really lucky to have these awesome women just like bring me up, and I wouldn't be where I am today without them.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. Yeah, occasionally I do some e-com work for a studio, and the studio was huge. And there were a lot of people who were full-time working, and I never experienced like workplace drama before. And I heard all about it. Luckily I was freelance, so I was only in there occasionally, but I heard enough about it. All I was saying was, I wouldn't want to work here full-time, and it wasn't just women, it was everybody.
Yeah.
But just the whole workplace dynamic like that, to me, the drama was a little more than I wanted to handle. So the fact that you've experienced it, being led and being promoted and being pushed and supported by other women that you've worked with, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's the weirdest thing of all. Like, I've just heard so many horror stories, so I'm like, oh, I guess I'm an anomaly here.
Well, that's good. That's very good. Well, thank you so much for being on here. I appreciate you doing this. It was very cool. If everybody watching, listening, like it, thumbs up it, comment it, subscribe to it, follow us, all that kind of stuff. And we'll keep on doing it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mark.
Thank you.